Welcome to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast with your host, Tony Guerra. The Pharmacy Leaders Podcast is a member of the Pharmacy Podcast Network, with interviews and advice on building your professional network, brand, and a purposeful second income from students, residents, and innovative professionals.
Welcome to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast. I'm excited to have a Minnesotan on today. 7 years ago, a high school chemistry teacher introduced Michelle Magus, a Hastings, Minnesota native, to pharmacy. She's served a diverse patient population locally, nationally, and internationally, and loves working with students in various healthcare professions. Michelle's pursuing an AmCare-focused pharmacy residency, and in her free time, she enjoys cooking, exploring the outdoors, and spending time with family. Michelle, welcome to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast.
Thank you, Tony.
Hey, so the first thing we always like to hear is a little bit about your story. Everyone's leadership road is a little bit different. Tell us a little bit about where you started and how you got to where you are today.
All right. Well, thank you. I'd say where I started. Well, I started my pre-pharmacy years at Drake. I did the 2 years of undergrad and then applied for the pharmacy program. During my undergrad years, I kind of tried out a few different organizations, following my passions, which include Spanish culture and volunteering, and really loved that. But when I started pharmacy school, I got involved with a few students looking to start a new organization focusing on interprofessionalism. And I think that's really where my leadership story took off with the initial conversations with these students. We kind of developed the Des Moines Student Healthcare Partnership, and over the first 3 years of actual pharmacy school, I helped expand it and was able to be on the executive committee and then the president my third year of pharmacy school. So that was kind of really where I found my niche. As some other things, I just didn't necessarily see it aligning with my passions as much.
Okay, and can you tell me a little bit more about this partnership? I know interprofessionalism is part of the accreditation document, so now it's required in pharmacy school, but how much you do and how little can vary. You could have just done interprofessionalism within your own college now that there's more parts to Drake than just pharmacy. But what was it that made you guys reach out to Des Moines University, Mercy College, DMAC, all those colleges?
Yeah, so a pharmacy student and a doctor of osteopathy or DO student, their paths crossed through different organizations. The summer before my P1 year, they were older students, and they found this need and this desire to interact with each other while they were students, to really learn how to work with each other, to learn what each other's professions could offer to patient care, and to kind of have those exposures before we are in settings where we have to work together, so that we could be prepared for those situations. So with that inspiration and seeing that need, and then seeing accreditation standards change to include interprofessional education, we kind of took off with that. And really expanded and developed a lot of different programming and things along the way.
Okay. Well, I just talked to Dave Draginas, who is an anesthesiologist in Texas, and he mentioned two places where pharmacists can really help. And that's one, explaining drug shortages, even maybe to the point of IV bag shortages. And then also, when you're going to make a recommendation to a physician, they really want to know early in the process. And so when an insurance company hands down, hey, we want them to change to this, that's not early in the process. What have you developed in terms of an understanding of what physicians do and how they want to be talked to by pharmacists?
Yeah. I found that in every setting, it's a little bit different. So You kind of just have to learn what personal preferences and how systems work at different hospitals and different clinics and everything. So I don't think there's necessarily one right way, but being able to communicate in various ways and to be concise, and as a pharmacist, always having the research or evidence backing up a recommendation is really helpful in both to create things to be learning experiences and to just kind of really build that rapport and that confidence between professionals.
Okay. What's the toughest challenge you've faced with this? Anytime you're starting something new, there's always challenges. What's the most difficult part of what you did with this interprofessional collaborative? It sounds like the schools are behind it, but certainly there's always something that kind of comes up.
Yeah, we've had a lot of fun barriers to overcome, and we really get to tap into our creative sides with it. I think one thing that was difficult was with it being an inter-college, inter-university organization, we were able to really put on our creative hats with navigating different policies at different colleges and universities to be a recognized organization. So we actually found a very fitting home with the Des Moines Area Interprofessional Education Collaborative, which is a group of faculty and staff from the 5 colleges and universities that have healthcare professions at them. And we approached them to ask if we could be a student counterpart to the work that they do. And that's been a perfect home. It was kind of a process to kind of create win-win strategies to really be able to work together with them. But that was a really fun opportunity to kind of put our thinking hats on and think outside of the box.
Yeah, I know that even just with J-term and things like that, so how does credit work? Like, who gets credit if you're going to do academic credits for something? Who pays tuition? Does the tuition come from which college? And things like that. I know that the value is clear. Well, let's talk a little bit about what you're going to be doing in the future. You are in the midst of the residency application process. For someone that's in that process, what recommendations do you have from what you've been doing, what your classmates at Drake have been doing?
Yeah, so I think one thing that my classmates and I are all learning is to take one step at a time. It's a pretty involved process, starting with researching residency programs, attending the ASHP mid-year conference if you're able to really talk to different sites. There's an application process, and then now here in January, we are all starting to hear back from programs. It all is at different times when we might be hearing back. But the next step then is interviews, and at the beginning of March, then we'll all be submitting our rankings. So there's a lot of steps along the way, and it can kind of get overwhelming. But by just taking it step by step and seeing what is necessary here and now, it's, I think, it's a very straightforward process.
What about getting support? Because for 5 years, because Drake is a 6-year program, so you had 2 years pre-pharmacy, 3 years didactic, and now you're all separate. How do you get support from your classmates while you're kind of all separate? I know you're at the mothership for this APPE rotation, but how are you getting support from the college, from your classmates through this process? Yeah,
so right now I'm in Des Moines, so it's very easy, and I'm around classmates, but I've been definitely all over the place. And, one thing that my friends and I do, we always just call each other up on the phone and are able to work through things or kind of problem solve if we need to with each other. We also have a class Facebook page, which is really nice to kind of stay connected and communicate big things if we need to as a class. The experiential office at Drake is super amazing, and at times when I've had scheduling changes, they are just on the ball and always available to us. And then also I've had a lot of resources with family and friends not in pharmacy to just kind of help me be as successful as possible through the process, and make sure I take time to have a lot of fun sometimes, and just kind of balance things out.
Okay. Well, now that you're hearing back, you're interviewing, I guess maybe we can talk about some of the experiences that led up to getting those interview yeses from programs. Can you talk a little bit about how international travel fits into pharmacy? I'll tell you a quick story that I had My wife and I went to Ireland. She had some back pain. We got diclofenac gel, which was prescription there, but it was 10 euros. The pharmacist gave it to us, and that was it. There was no insurance card. It was the most straightforward and wonderful thing to be able to go to another pharmacist and get that care. Can you tell us a little bit about the countries you've been to, how pharmacy works there, and then what impact you guys made at Drake?
Yeah, so I would love to go in super detail with all of this, but I'll kind of give a little overview. So a passion of mine throughout my pharmacy career and well before pharmacy as well has been international travel. And I've been able to pair the global and comparative public health concentration at Drake with my pharmacy degree, which has opened a lot of doors. As far as exploring pharmacy and healthcare systems, I've gone to the Dominican Republic on a couple occasions, as my sister also lived there for a period of time, and seen both the private and public sector, as well as served on a medical mission or medical service trip there. I lived in Cusco, Peru for a summer and worked at a hospital there for a study abroad experience. And most recently, I did advanced pharmacy practice experience or rotation in South Africa. So with my interest in working with diverse patient populations and understanding different cultures, these have all definitely fit into that. There's plenty of opportunities for that within the United States as well, but I've been able to even get a broader view. And I've also learned how things work on a macro scale, so been able to compare and contrast healthcare systems, the quality, the access, and the cost of healthcare systems, and kind of see how systems run on the large scale, which has been a really beneficial experience for me.
Okay, so taking it back to the United States, you're interested in ambulatory care. Tell me how those international experiences informed you. A big thing that we hear over and over again is there's a difference between learning and skills. So maybe in high school you learned Spanish, but when you went to Cusco, I mean, I don't know if they spoke Spanish or they spoke Quechuan. Was it Spanish?
Mostly Spanish where I was, yeah.
That you went over there. Now you're developing skills. So you're actually speaking in Spanish. You're doing things with pharmacy in Spanish. Tell me a little bit about the skill building that comes from that would help you in a residency for other people that are maybe thinking about doing international as a way to make their residencies better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's definitely the language skill that comes with some of that international travel I've done. I think in a broader sense, just communicating with different people and learning how they view things differently than I might view them, how different health beliefs impact their health practices. And that's something that I've found very useful, no matter who I'm working with in the United States or abroad. If something isn't making sense to them, I have experienced opportunities to really look at different parts of their life, whether it's their social, their financial, their different beliefs, to kind of understand maybe where a health belief is coming from. And then with that those communication skills, having practice and experiences with educating and explaining things in different ways to make sense to different people, which, I can use those skills when I talk to my grandma about her medications. Also,
you become a doctor the day you're a P1, that's for sure.
Yes, but also with anyone in clinic settings or really any setting.
Okay. Well, I guess what many students want to know is, how do you get involved in international travel? Is that a selection process? Do you just go into the experiential office and say, I'd really like to go to the Dominican Republic, Peru, and South Africa. Make it so. How does that work at Drake?
So a lot of it has been my own researching opportunities. There's definitely people to help you along the way, but I think just going after it if you're interested in it. I didn't have anyone necessarily put this exact experience in front of me and say, you do want to go or do you not want to go. It's been more, I researched when I studied abroad in Cusco, Peru, I researched different organizations and different third parties that Drake works with to go abroad. I got different pamphlets from the international office to look at different opportunities. I told them that I was interested in something that I could relate to my medical pharmacy interest, as well as I speak Spanish, I wanted to go to a Spanish-speaking country. And they were able to kind of star some programs for me and kind of give me a little bit of a starting place. But then really I made an Excel spreadsheet and looked at the cost, the living situation, if it was, a homestay or in an apartment type of setting, which I wanted a homestay. So I was kind of made my priority list and compared programs and kind of took the bull by the horns.
Yeah, I hear there's a lot of Excel spreadsheets at ASHP. I was up there with a couple residents as you guys were going into the showcase that first time, and it took about 10 or 11 minutes, so about 2,000 or 3,000 people had gone into that showcase. So tell me a little bit about what you did at that showcase in terms of getting information. What I keep hearing over and over is that a lot of times people go in there and find out that a program they didn't think about becomes a program they do think about, and programs they thought were something might be something else. So can you tell me a little bit about what it was that you did at the showcase when you were meeting those people from the residencies?
So I had an awesome support of friends and students that are older than me to kind of help guide me through the process and to give me some advice going into it. Definitely took out that Excel spreadsheet and probably a couple weeks, couple months ahead of time when I had spare time. And then as it was getting closer, I made time to make sure I researched programs that I was interested in. ASHP has a residency directory online that was very helpful to kind of search by geographic area or by what type of program I was interested in. And then from there just was researching programs on their web pages to understand what they offered. And then also some self-reflection of looking at what I really prioritized in a residency. So when I was able to come up with my priorities, I could look at what different residency programs offered and see what kind of really matched up and where I thought I could thrive and where I could benefit the program the most.
Okay.
So then I had a big long list. I was able to kind of figure out which showcases there are because there's three showcases.
So attaching Excel to mapping software.
Yes, then I mapped it all out. And just kind of, looked at all the resources ahead of time to make sure I was as prepared as possible.
Okay. Well, the competition for residencies gets tougher each year. You've been intelligently efficient with making posters out of your experiences. You mentioned John Rovers, I think, was one person that helped you with one of your projects. Can you tell me how you, I don't want to say repurpose, but how do you take an experience, turn it into a poster, turn it into a presentation? Because you have a significant curriculum vitae, but a lot of that, it all happened in 6 years is what I just can't believe. And so how are you intelligently efficient with the experiences you have and then the production that you create in terms of these presentations, posters? Because I saw you presenting a poster at the national level.
So I think first and foremost is I've had passion behind pretty much everything I've done. Obviously, there's things that we have to do sometimes that we don't necessarily get to choose. But all of my things that I've chosen, the research, the organizations, leadership positions, are things that I've been really passionate about. So then it makes it fun to do things.
Okay. You never have to work a day in your life if you enjoy your work.
Right. That's exactly what it is. And then with that, having mentors who kind of help me see opportunities. So I went to the Dominican Republic on a medical service trip, but was able to be a student researcher with research surrounding that. With that research, a part of the results I was able to turn into a poster to present at ASHP mid-year in the student poster presentations. And then with the additional information and additional data we collected, we're working on a manuscript with that. So a lot of times with one experience, there's multiple ways that you can either share, like educate other people about what you've been able to do, or have leadership within the experience. So while I was in the Dominican Republic, I was the lead pharmacy student to help kind of set up the pharmacy and train other students that were not pharmacy students that were on the trip. And then just keeping an eye out for different opportunities to share those experiences.
Okay. Well, is there anything that I haven't asked you that you do want to communicate or talk about, whether it's Drake, family, what you do outside of pharmacy, or maybe some advice that you have for other people?
Well, you asked a lot of good questions today. I guess I think a major thing that has been crucial in my experience is just finding areas that I'm passionate about and exploring things to figure out what I'm not passionate about, and just continuing to pursue those things. I think when we are excited about what we do, it's a lot more fun, and you can go a lot further with different experiences when you have that motivation behind it. And then with that, I also have a lot of different outside hobbies that I'm passionate about that kind of keep me energized and fresh when I go to my pharmacy things as well.
Okay. Well, just a couple of questions here at the end. What's the best career advice you've ever given or received? Best career advice.
Best career advice. That is a good question.
We can come back to it if you like.
Okay, well, let's come back to that one.
Okay. What do you do on a daily basis to keep the 100 things you do a day on track? on a daily basis. Are you like a list person? Are you, how do you keep it on track, or is Excel coming back again?
So no, this isn't Excel. This
Okay.
is a different app,
Okay.
because then it's on my computer and on my phone.
Okay.
It's a free, I think it's called Todoist,
Okay.
an awesome app that I can have a continual to-do list. I can look at my day, my week,
Yeah.
a specific project, and just kind of always prioritizing urgent and important things
Okay.
on that list.
Okay, so the best career advice. We can go back to, why did you go to Drake? You're from Minnesota. Why did you skip on down I-35 and just come down a couple extra hours down to Des Moines?
Yeah, so I loved the atmosphere at Drake. There's a lot of just very personable faculty and students that were just very
Iowa
motivated,
nice.
friendly. I think it's Minnesota nice, isn't it?
Minnesota and Iowa we still have that kind of, that kind of conflict, but
Midwest
yeah, Iowa nice, Minnesota nice, Midwest nice. Yeah.
Yeah. But I just really liked the atmosphere. People were really involved and kind of always pushing to be the best versions of themselves and create the best environment possible.
What inspires you?
I think when it comes down to it, my faith really inspires me.
Okay.
I always, believe that I always want to be the best person I can be and make every day a little bit better. And with any interaction I have, if I can make someone else's day a little bit better, that's just a huge success for me.
Awesome. Well, Michelle, thanks so much for being on the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast.
Thank you.
Support for this episode comes from the audiobook Memorizing Pharmacology, a relaxed approach. With over 9,000 sales in the United States, United Kingdom, and Australia, it's the go-to resource to ease the pharmacology challenge. Available on Audible, iTunes, and Amazon.com, in print, ebook, and audiobook. Thank you for listening to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast with your host, Tony Guerra. Be sure to share the show with the hashtag #PharmacyLeaders.